As high spring tides continue to create havoc in coastal provinces, environmental groups worry about hurdles, the tiny plastic pellets used in manufacturing plastic, washing up the KwaZulu-Natal beaches. Environmentalists are also calling on the government to classify raw plastic material as hazardous due to its impact on marine life. Newzroom Afrika's Nobuhle Modise reports.
The Durban harbour saw a large nurdle spill in October 2017 after a ship carrying 46 tons of pellets capsized during a freak storm. More than 6 years later, these nurdles continue to wash up along the South African coastline. But what are nurdles?
Plastic nurdles are raw plastic material. This is what is used to make different types of plastics. It comes in as pellets, which are more or less like grain size, about 5 millimeters. That's how small they are. And in that way, they say it's easier to transport them. It is also easier to formulate them to different types of plastic material or plastic things.
Marine life is severely threatened by these small pieces of plastic. The creatures that make up the base of the marine food chain are prematurely dying by choking on nurdles.
Some of the animals that stays in the ocean, I just mentioned a few, especially the schooling sardines, some of the whale species, they are filter feeders, which means that they will eat microorganisms which are referred to as plankton. So when they see things like nurdles, which look similar to fish eggs or those smaller organisms, they get attracted to them. They think it's something they can eat, and eventually they do consume these nurdles. And in return, what will happen in the long run, they won't feel a need to eat. And sometimes, even if they do, they will suffer consequences of nurdles. But not only that, that will come back to affect people that usually feed on seafood. Most people love seafood. So if they are eating seafood that is contaminated with nurdles, it means that the problem is an ongoing issue.
The recent high spring tides have contributed to the nurdles suddenly washing up along the KwaZulu-Natal north coastline again. Environmental groups have called on government to classify these pellets as hazardous.
The problem is that this is plastic. I mean, it's basically made from oil, so it should be a hazardous material, which it's not. And because it's not a hazardous material, they travel on top of trucks and on top of ships. And if there are any storms and one falls over, they disappear into the ocean and into the environment. So they need to be transported around the world as a hazardous material because they need to be properly contained.
Litter for Tokens says currently it's only civil society that's trying to clean up.
There is something called EPR, which is Extended Producer Responsibility, which is a voluntary thing. So all the big plastic producers can put a voluntary pay this voluntary tax. But then at least it helps us take their rubbish off the beach and out of the ocean. We're trying to get government to take this more seriously, and just make one or two legislation policies against this. You know, it'll take the price of virgin plastic up. And as you know, virgin plastic is a leftover oil from the ocean, which, you know, we can have that conversation as well. So if we can just make it a hazardous material, make it more expensive to transport, it'll take the price of virgin plastic up, which will then give our recycling plastic a value behind it. Because right now, recycled plastic has zero value to it.
As it stands, informal waste pickers are the ones pushing the recycling agenda.
I understand that it's catastrophic levels, and there's so much going on in our country and so much going on in the global climate and stuff that we're at full capacity and full capabilities and all things like that. But then they've got to call on civil society, because that's where the experts lie, and we're here to help and support, not to go against anything. We're just trying to help.
The microplastics are hugely detrimental to both humans as well as marine ecosystems, quickly finding their way into the food system where they cause ulceration, starvation and death. Litter for Tokens says it's particularly concerned as it's been discovered that these nurdles follow the same ocean currents as turtles. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Nobuhle Modise in Durban.